Right here, why don't you talk? Let me make sure you're there.
Okay, I'm here.
Can you hear yourself pretty well?
I can.
We don't have one. Welcome out to the desert island for Friday. I'm Elisa Clancy. Our trombonist, composer, arranger, castaway today was born and raised in Rochester, New York in a musical family. His mom is a lifelong classical and contemporary music flutist, and he grew up singing, I guess, around the house as a kid. Now, savvy parents get their kids something to play when that starts to happen. After the elementary school introduction to instruments that all kids get, he decided on drums, then trumpet. But since he was pretty tall for his age, the teacher needed trombone players. That's what happens. You just get the instrument they need. He grew into liking the sound of the instrument. He fell in love with the music of Duke Ellington after participating in the essentially Ellington competition years back. He was mentored by Wycliffe and Steve Turre, and Wycliffe even wrote several pieces for him when he was at the Eastman School of Music. He went on to get a master's at Juilliard. He also has gotten several awards for composition, the ASCAP Herb Alpert Award for Young Composers 2013 and 2015. He's done a lot of globetrotting as well, part of Anat Cohen's Tentet, the Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra, Lucas Pino's Nonet, Ryan Truesdale's Gil Evans project, Bob Stewart's double quartet. He's a big advocate of YouTube for education. He's there talking about compositions, performing, arranging, and he's got his own media company and recording label, Outside in Music. I'll ask him about it. A great young maker of creative content, our castaway today is Nick Finzer. Did I get that all right? Is it all okay?
Oh, yeah. It's very in-depth.
Didn't your parents move to Arizona?
They live in Arizona.
My parents live in Arizona, too. Our guest is Nick Finzer, out on the desert island. That was his trombone solo. It's funny, I saw you while it's playing, you're looking off into the distance. Are you thinking about, damn, I could have done that better? Were you thinking that?
Don't give away all my secrets.
I know, that was hilarious. Yeah. Do you find yourself kind of overthinking things sometimes?
Of course.
Yeah. As any good low brass guy does. You overthink things. I only know that because I have a kid that's he's a tuba player.
Oh, okay.
And bass trombone player, so he's always kind of overthinking how he's doing. And I'm like, you know what? Don't worry about it. Vaughan Williams didn't write it like that for you. It's okay, you can do it.
Right. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Tell me about growing up in Rochester. The Mangionis are from Rochester.
That's true. Yeah. He was one of the first guys that I played with. Not Chuck, but his brother Gap had a big band in Rochester, and it was one of the things that I did when I was coming up in school. Definitely.
Yeah.
But Rochester is a really pretty great music town. You kind of take it for granted as someone growing up there. I didn't grow up like necessarily in the city and just in the suburbs, and kind of just going down and just everything was always like Eastman.
Yeah.
Kind of like, oh yeah, that's just the local school. But for me, I never thought too much about it, and then all of a sudden when I started thinking about college and all that sort of stuff, and be like, oh, like this is like a really great resource that I've just kind of taken for granted my whole life.
That's funny. What would have happened if you didn't get into Eastman?
Well, I had other
because you kind of grow
plans,
up, thinking, well, this is obviously what I'm going to do. I mean, my mom, your mother Sherry, she's a flute player, and and they've retired, right? They moved to
Arizona to work in 2005. They're still doing their thing out there. They're not retired yet.
Was she in the Rochester Symphony? Did she do a lot of chamber music and things like
she
that
always was doing,
before you came along?
Yeah, she was always doing different things, playing wise. She was never in the symphony there, but she thought about going to school at Eastman also, but she decided to get married and have a family with my dad instead, and she kind of put it away for a long time, and I didn't even know that she played until I was probably in high school, and she was like, well, guess what, and see that you're into this music stuff now, like, guess what, I used to play, and here's all this stuff, and then she kind of got back into it kind of during all that time. So then she was getting back into it, and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do all kind of at the same time. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah. Oh, that's fabulous. Nick is out here, by the way, for a couple of concerts. In fact, you'll be at the Sound Room tomorrow night, Saturday night, with a lot of these great players that Jimmy McBride you brought, and Lucas Pino, who's a wonderful player. And then you're going to have Marcus Shelby along and Joe Warner. You've worked with Marcus before or not?
I have not. This will be the first time.
Oh, he's fun.
Oh, good.
Oh, you're going to have a good time. So, and you were out here at the SF Jazz Center with Anat's group.
That's right. Yeah, back in December.
I love that group.
Yeah, it's super fun. It's a really great group to be a part of, and Anat is such an electric personality. It's like you can't help but to come to life both musically and personally, you know.
Well, that whole family, you know, the whole Cohen family, I mean, they grow up playing music together in Israel and then bring it over here and they just expand their working family, you know. Mm-hmm. Kind of, you become a part of the extended family. I'm so glad you brought your stuff today. I wanted to ask you first about, is this the first record on posi-tone? Your record No Arrivals, brand new.
Mm-hmm. Yep, yeah. It's the first one with posi-tone.
Yeah, Mark Free, those guys are wonderful.
Yeah, he's doing a lot of great work.
Yeah, and you have 3 other records.
I do have 3 other records, yep.
How are you doing that?
It's a really good question.
I mean, are you teaching also?
I am kind of in between teaching at the moment. Okay. I mean, I teach privately in New York and kind of online and stuff. I was doing a visiting professor gig for a little while, and then just been full-time back in New York for the last couple of years. But I don't know, I just kind of set money aside and try to make sure that make it a priority. A mentor of mine once told me, you know, once you have to make like 5 records, and then maybe people will start to take you seriously. So I've been kind of trying to chase that number, I guess, but
5 records. Well, you're almost there.
I feel like I'm behind because I was like, all right, I'm gonna do 5 records in 5 years. And it's been 5 records. It's been 4 records in 5 years, so I'm only a little behind.
Gee, type A trombone player? I don't know if that goes together.
I don't know.
You know, you think trumpet player type A?
Yeah.
I don't know. You don't think trombone player type A. I think you guys are kind of a little more laid back, but then I may be wrong, right?
Well, I'm laid back, but then you know, try to make things happen too.
That's right. Nick Finzer is our guest out on the desert island. His new album is No Arrival. How did you get that title? What's that about? No Arrival. It means you
it's
are
kind
always...
You're always seeking, you know, always trying to... It's just a thing every time you think you get somewhere, you're actually not at the place where you thought you were. And so for me, that's kind of the musical thing where you're writing new tunes. I'm like, oh, I'm going to try to make something new for the band and do it. And then it's like, oh, this is just an extension of what I've already been doing. And every time I try to think of something new, it's really just connected to everything that's already been.
That's funny because you're a big Ellington guy, and that's sort of the way Ellington wrote. He would write a piece for a particular musician, and then it would morph into another piece for maybe feature Paul Gonsalves, maybe feature Lawrence Brown. You know? Is that kind of the way?
Yeah, I'm definitely a person that writes for people, and then it kind of translates later into different people, maybe, or different personalities. But that's everything about Ellington's music and the way he wrote kind of has struck a chord with me my whole life so far.
Well, you're going to hear some Ellington coming up a little bit later, but we're going to start with, you've picked out J.J. Johnson. I mean, talk about the mentors. The early mentors and JJ. Did you ever get to meet him? I think you're a little young.
I'm a little too young. Yeah, I'm 29, so.
What?
Yeah.
What's the gray hair?
Yeah,
What's going on? It
comes from my dad. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's gray hair.
It's Finzer family hair, man.
Going gray early. He was totally gray by 30. I got a month to go to my birthday, so I'm still sort of, you know.
That's funny.
Sort of okay.
So set this up. This is a version of Laura. This is a great version.
Yeah, so this record, JJ in Person, is one of the first records that I ever checked out when someone said to me, hey, you know, you should really check this out. And it was actually Wycliffe Gordon, one of my first mentors, that said, this is the solo you should transcribe. And I had already had the record, mostly because on the CD compilation they came out with, there was a double disc with a trombone ensemble with like 8 trombones, and that was kind of cool and fun when I was younger. And then I really started getting into the second half of the record, which is this JJ in Person, which I found out later was actually, they said on the liner notes, it was recorded in Rochester, New York as a live concert, but it was not live at all. It was recorded in the studio and they dubbed in.
There's so many things.
Yeah, and I just thought it was funny, the Rochester thing. Anyway, it's one of my favorite records, but so this is like one of my go-to solos.
His playing is really languid. It's just beautiful. That's some pretty sexy stuff. I'm telling you. It is Lawrence Brown. That's Lawrence from Sweet and Pungent, 1959. We were talking, Nick Finzer, they're talking about how Duke wrote for all the guys in the band. Yeah. And Lawrence was a real good talker on the trombone. Yeah. Do you do a lot of that with the plunger mute and things like that?
Yeah, I do. I try to have something on each record that's that.
Come on,
and I
baby.
mean, Wycliffe was one of my first teachers, and it was just that's like part of the trombone tradition. And sometimes it doesn't make it into the lexicon of all the young trombonists, but it's definitely something I've always
Yeah, oh,
loves to
absolutely.
do.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
That's a lot of fun. And then just ahead of that, we heard, did we hear Riot?
Yeah, right.
Wow, that's great. Great choice. You have Herbie, Speak Like a Child, Riot, and then we're going to hear Matrix from Chick Corea. What is it about Herbie and Chick and their writing? And I hear a little bit of the angles in your writing about that. Yeah?
Yeah, it's something about the angles, something about the colors that go beyond the normal colors. And I think it's just because when I first heard it, I didn't know what that was.
What they were doing, yeah.
I was like, what is that? Because I was, checking out JJ and Ellington coming through that first and being like, understanding kind of like what sounds like chords. And then I'm like, well, what are these? This is cool. And then trying to delve down that road. But that music, that Speak Like a Child record, when I was still in high school, somebody hired me for one of my first gigs ever, and he's like, we're going to play this music from Speak Like a Child. I'm like, okay, sure, yeah, I'll be there.
What are the changes?
And then it's like,
well, it's kind of...
Exactly. And so I show up and just kind of like trying to figure it all out and having no idea. And so I think something about that process of going from totally not knowing what's happening to performing and then coming back to it years later, just there's some kind of magic in there. And I don't know, I just love the way that those guys connect, both in the writing way and then when they play, it's so youthful and playful and I don't know, it's kind of timeless.
Yeah, it's funny talking about not knowing what you're doing when you were going to the essentially Ellington competition. Now, how does that work? Your high school
so it was like a Saturday like area band, and it was kids from all different high schools.
It's like an all-star band
something like
in
that.
Rochester.
Yes. So just some of us from Rochester that wanted to play music, and we didn't even start doing that knowing that it was going to be an Ellington band or anything like that. And so they had just a tape. You send in a tape, a recording, and this was this would have been 2003. So it was before they had all these different divisions and
sure. And you're 13, right?
So yeah, I was probably 13, and. So they selected us as a finalist, and we went down to New York and played in Alice Tully Hall. It was before any of the Jazz Lincoln Center stuff existed, and it was just, for me, the electricity of playing jazz music in New York was so compelling that's what I was like, oh, this is obviously what I'm doing with my life.
What did you guys play? Do you remember?
Sure,
what was the piece? Yeah.
We played... I'm trying to think of what we played on that concert. But I know we played Portrait of Louis Armstrong, and we played Harlem Air Shaft. And we played...
Oh, Not Easy.
No,
Harlem Air Shaft?
Harlem Air Shaft, yeah. That was my...
Did you guys win?
No, we didn't. We did not win. We were not even close to, I think, New World High School from Miami, Florida. They
wow.
Or one of the ones from Seattle, Garfield, maybe.
Sure.
And I had no idea as a high school student that high school students could play like that. I was just blown away, just totally different level. Even though we were, quote-unquote, all-star band,
sure.
We, upstate New York doesn't have the... soul of some of these other places, I would say, but
or the money behind it,
or that's it.
Necessarily the budget behind it. Nick Finzer is our guest out on the desert island today. He'll have his group at the Sound Room tomorrow night. Check it out. It's a great group. Marcus Shelby will be joining him. Lucas Bino, Jimmy McBride, Joe Warner. You haven't played with Joe either, right?
I haven't, though, but meeting him
Well, that'll be fun. You're going to say, hey, I've got these really difficult charts for you guys.
Exactly.
Check this out.
It's kind of an adventure.
Here, Marcus, play this. Oh, they'll be fun.
Oh, yeah, it'll be fun. Yeah. It's always fun. And for me, it's always fun to hear what other people do with your music, because you write it for certain people, and you know what they're going to do before they do it, and then to have somebody else in the situation, it just brings a new energy to it for me.
That's right. And then you'll go back and go, wow, I never heard it like that. Exactly. I think I can rewrite this. I could do something different.
Right, exactly. Going all the way back to what you were saying at the beginning, kind of always listening, really intently, and how can I make this better?
Yeah. Do you find, what do you listen to when you're like on your downtime? Are you listening to?
It's always changing, I think. Recently, it's been that "Speak Like a Child" record. Recently.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And then, kind of going back to things and.
Yeah, a little bit going back to things. I don't know. I always go back to the classics, but I also like to just kind of scroll through what's new and what's happening, what other people are doing. Yeah. So I kind of sample through a lot of what other people are doing.
Well, you're a millennial,
I can't shake all of the generational baggage.
What is your generational baggage? What do you think?
I'm not sure. I feel like I'm kind of in between.
You are actually. Yeah. You're kind of almost a Z and a millennial, but not quite.
Yeah, and I'm kind of like I kind of I'm an old soul, I've been told before.
Ding,
So,
ding, ding, ding.
so I kind of, there's certain things where like I'm really like, trying to get good at, the social media side of things and into that, all that internet stuff. But then there's another part of me just wants to just play music and just not deal with any.
Did you ever read that book by Jack Sheldon, Trying to Get Good?
No, I never
The
read that.
drummer Jack Sheldon.
I'll have to
He
check
spent
that
his whole life in music, and the book is Trying to Get Good.
Yeah,
Because you are.
That's
You're
the
always.
life, yeah.
I mean, that's no arrival.
Exactly.
It is. It's the very
Exactly.
zen. You just have to be present and kind of suck up the things around you and see what bubbles up, right?
Yeah, that's trying to take something from everybody.
Where are we going next? I think you picked. Oh, Chick. Yeah.
Chick Corea. Yeah.
And Matrix has that same kind of feel as Riot, but it's a little different.
It's a little different. It's
Chick. Chick is more percussive in his approach.
Yeah,
right?
he's got a little bit more percussive, a little bit more maybe avant-garde leanings. This recording is a couple years after, actually just like a year and a half after.
Yeah, he does. He
Another
throws in like little tritones every once in a while. Woo-hoo!
Yeah, he's got all that kind of Bartok kind of classical stuff.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's what you put your finger on it right there. Excellent. Yeah, there's some great plunger work there. Wycliffe Gordon.
Mhm.
He's dynamite. He's a good tuba player too.
Oh, yeah.
That guy. And singer.
He
He
sings.
started singing on
Plays trumpet.
stuff.
He does everything.
Yeah, Wycliffe Gordon with Eric Reed on piano. It's very, very pretty stuff. So, from an album called Slidin' Home. Brought in by our Desert Island Castaway today, Nick Finzer. You met Wycliffe. He came through Rochester. Was he touring, doing that?
Yeah, he was touring. I think he was playing. I think with a local rhythm section, and he was fronting this band and just playing some of his music.
Yeah.
And I went down to see him at somebody's recommendation. I don't remember who, but then my mom pushed me to go and introduce myself to him. And I remember it so clearly because it was super, super cold, and it was February. And I had left my horn in the car, and he was like, "Oh, why don't you get your horn?" And I remember going to get it, and it was like
Cold.
so frozen.
Oh, yeah. And your
And I was
hands are
so
frozen and your
nervous and
lips
just like-
are frozen.
Yeah, and I was just like, and he was like, "Oh, let's play." And then he took his whole set break to just play and like not relax. He took the time
Yeah.
to just play with me and just kind of give me some pointers and tell me some things to check out. And then he invited me to come down to New York and take some lessons with him on an ongoing basis before I auditioned for college. So it was the start of a great relationship.
Yeah, and that's the way to do it. I mean, those are the people you really remember, are those great mentors, and you've kind of turned into one yourself, right?
I try
'cause
my
you just
best.
Said,
but
you just said, "Oh, here's one of my students texting me about this music," and blah, blah, blah. So you're doing it too. You take them on.
yeah, pay it forward. You need someone to show you. I think it's not
Absolutely.
It's not super obvious all the time where you need to go to get to the next place.
Yeah, there's not that. Well, there is. There is in jazz that kind of taking someone under your wing still and bringing them on the bandstand maybe for the last tune or
Sure,
something of the
exactly.
night, and then calling them the next time you're in town and saying, "Hey, come on down. I'm going to be down. Yeah, come
Right.
on and play and sit in with us." And that's how you do it.
Exactly.
I think that's your calling card.
Right.
Is
and
to get on the bandstand and do it.
display your wares, as Art Blakey used to say.
That's right. Display your wares. I'm so sad you didn't get to meet Art Blakey.
I know, there's a lot of
He was
people
one of
I
those guys that had the big ears, and he was looking out for the younger players all the time. He's like, "Oh, the Marsalises, those guys are okay. I think I'll bring them on the band." He's always finding the Terrence Blanchard. He's always
Right.
finding the young talent.
Yeah, it's different now. During my last lesson, one of my other teachers, Steve Turre, I remember asking him, what should I do with myself? This is during our last time together, official time, and being like, if you were me, what would you do? He's like, well, I don't know. When I came to New York, I crashed on Art Blakey's couch.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'm already here. So anyway,
right.
it's just displays how different it is now.
Well, you're always welcome on our couch too,
Oh,
because
well, thank you.
we do have kind of a musician's flop house
Oh, nice.
at our house too. So we got two couches, so we can have lots of people. We also heard Chick Corea do Matrix ahead of that. I just want to mention that with Miroslav Vitus and Roy Haynes. Oh Roy, have you met Roy?
I have. I don't think he
Yeah.
would remember necessarily, but
I know.
I've seen him play many, many times in the city. So
Yeah,
he's especially with that record being so close to my heart. Just that trio is.
Yeah, that's from. By the way, that's from Now He Sings, Now He Sobs from Chick Corea. We're going to do a little more Ellington, since you're a big Ellingtonian.
It's true. It's true.
Ellingtonia file. Maybe I'll say that. How's that? Portrait of Mahalia Jackson.
Yes.
Talk about churchy music. Tell me about why this makes your list for your desert island.
This whole record, I just come back to it again and again, and I don't know why it is. I mean, I think it has something to do with the fact that it's towards the end of his career, and that you can just hear so many things in the music, especially if you kind of go from the beginning and listen.
You hear the whole history of the music.
Yeah, and you
right
get to the end, and then it's just there's some kind of depth to it, and like not as many people know it necessarily, and also I got a chance to kind of investigate it in depth in college, which helped introduce me to it. And like I said, that first concert I ever played in New York with Portrait of Louis Armstrong, before I even knew where it was from or anything. Yeah. And I don't know, there's something about the orchestration and the colors that always jump out to me, and the way that he puts the instruments together and writes for those players. Again, I know we've said it before, but it's just the personalities.
Yeah, it's funny because, see, listen to the tempo.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't sound like it would be Mahalia Jackson.
Right.
But then listen to it develop, yeah. So we're going to, yeah, that's Michael Brecker. That's obviously titled Wide Angles, the album, the Quindectet and Broadband, brought in by our Desert Island castaway today, Nick Finzer. I love it.
Me too.
Yeah. It goes in all these it's kind of circles,
yeah,
but squares at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I like about it. It's wonderful. You could just about take any Michael Brecker record and,
there's
find
something
something in it anywhere.
This one in particular for me has just the orchestration on it. Gil Goldstein, the great orchestrator and accordion player. He just, I don't know, there's some incredible stuff that I would never expect to do it that way.
Yeah.
When I listened to it, I was like, oh, and it kind of hits me every time when I hear it again.
Oh, I'm going to use it. I'm going to steal it. I'm going to steal it.
Yes, exactly.
And then Duke Ellington's New Orleans Suite ahead of that, Portrait of Mahalia Jackson. Nick Finzer, he'll be at the Sound Room tomorrow night with Lucas Pino, Marcus Shelby, Joe Warner, Jimmy McBride. And then you're off to go back to New York, probably, right? Are you?
No, we're playing down in L.A.
The
Whale, and then we're going to Phoenix to play out there, and going to Flagstaff to play there with Lucas Pino. We're doing a residency with his band.
Is that with the Non-At?
The Non-At, yep. And then we're going to go and play in Phoenix, do a double bill with his band and my band, and then I'm going to keep going and go to Salt Lake, and then I'm back to New York.
I remind everybody that he's 29, so he's got plenty of energy to still do this. Nick Finzer, he's got a new album out too, No Arrival. Very nice. Stuff on here, a lot of your writing, and then there's, of course, some Ellington. Some Ellington.
Can't escape it.
All right, Nick, you get to take a book with you out to your island. What do you read?
The book that I was thinking about when I was trying to think what book I would bring, there's a great book. It's technically written by the Dalai Lama, but there's another guy that kind of wrote all the editing for it and did all of that. It's called The Art of Happiness, is the name of the book. And that's one that I kind of came back to. I introduced to it in college, but that's one that I revisit frequently.
Yeah. Did your mother become a Buddhist?
No.
No. Because you mentioned, and I read in a bio that she's sort of doing New Age.
She does some New Age stuff.
Yeah.
She's just kind of seeing that whole lifestyle, now.
Kind of coming to it later. She's becoming an old hippie.
Yeah, exactly. But the first time I ever interacted with that kind of thought process was the first time I met Steve Turre and went to his house.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was like, what is all this? And they kind of sent me down, he kind of talked a little bit about it and sent me down that path. But it was something that always interested me, for sure.
That's a good one. How about a luxury item that you can't live without? Your camera.
I was going to say, the camera. The camera is my recent, not obsession, but a recent thing that I feel like I need to figure out how to use.
Well, you've utilized YouTube instructional videos, and tell me a little bit about your company that you're kind of developing.
Yeah,
right?
I have a company called Untitled Music, and we're putting out records, but mostly focusing on content for the internet, basically, kind of focusing on videos and doing everything kind of that first, and then using the normal traditional models of putting out records and all that stuff kind of to assist young people like myself kind of get rolling with their careers and get on to the next thing and the next whatever, maybe record label or whatever, but just kind of create a foundation for people to discover them, because I feel like there's so much noise out there that sometimes we just need to kind of coalesce together and help each other out, basically.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
That's kind of what it's become.
Well, you're building a community in a different way.
Right.
You kind of have to use the new technology to build your community.
Exactly.
Your jazz community.
That's what we're doing.
Because there aren't that many of us out there. The 7%ers, as we call us, the 7% of the population that buy music or things like that. Oh, one of my favorite things we're going out with, Bright Size Life.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, why is this on your list with Pat? Newly minted NEA Jazz Master.
This is on the list because it was literally in my car every day for 4 years when I was in college studying music, and it's never left. It's kind of just one of those things where his compositions and style just, I don't know, it's really inspiring every time.
It's comfort food.
It's comfort food, exactly, yes.
Just eat it up. Nick Finzer, our guest out on the Desert Line, thank you so much for coming in. This was wonderful.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. Thank you.
Hey, best of luck to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, keep doing what you're doing,
Trying.
Keep spinning until you can. Until you have to stop. Michael Berman is the producer of Desert Island Jazz, and Michael will be, he'll put Nick's list up on our website, kcsm.org, with a link to your website, and we'll have a picture of you there and everything else.
Fantastic.
Yeah. We'll go out with this. Have a great weekend, everybody.